This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For April 26, 2023, it's the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. Welcome back, everybody. And time for another Friday. Nope, wait, it's Wednesday. Time for a Wednesday afternoon podcast adventure with the AV SuperFriends. My name's Chris Decter, and today I'm joined by Jamie, Justin, and Larry. And on today's show, we're going to discuss NWMET 2023 and the very first ever worldwide premiere of the first preview of NWMET 2024 with a very special guest coming up in just a few minutes. We're also going to talk about digital canvases for classroom content, as we've determined that seems to be the way forward for things. Justin, who was demonstrating the digital canvas he uses at home today. It was interesting.
Yeah, I was taking a picture and texting
He was taking
everybody.
pictures with his phone and then it was weird.
Yeah,
so.
it was a little weird.
Yeah, it worked.
But first, it's the AV news. And we just picked this article yesterday because it's one we've talked about, I think, twice already before. But it's an interesting, what do you want to call it? A preview of things to come, perhaps, or at least one possible way. The article is linked below. This is from EdScoop, and this is about the University of Arkansas possibly or maybe not buying the University of Phoenix. And we brought this up a few months ago as like, is this going to be kind of a play for universities around the country who need a very fast lift to get a big online presence? You buy a for-profit or an online-only school, and then you rebrand it, and suddenly you have a big online university. So right now, let me read the headline. I forgot that. The headline is, University of Arkansas trustees vote 5-4 against acquiring the University of Phoenix. So there seems to be some pushback on this, both from faculty as well as the trustees.
I think the headline's a little misleading, though. Like when you read when you read the article, like it's a non-binding agreement. They're basically just
that was interesting.
Putting their name out there that we don't
regardless.
Want this to happen, but it's going to happen anyway.
However,
it's still happening.
If you go against what the board of trustees say, how long are you still going to be there?
Yeah, this is going to get interesting. How would you like to been that ninth person, and let's say it was tied 4-4, right?
Well, one person actually abstained.
How'd that vote play out?
So there are 10 people,
10?
And one person decided they weren't going to vote because then it would be a 5-5 probably.
This is just like an oh snap moment. Like, oh snap. That's really it.
I just find it interesting on some of the reasonings they stated in the article. Was they were worried about the reputation, they worried about that it might take a hit in their advertising and things. And one of the things that we focused on early that doesn't seem to be part of this agreement is, well, what a great thing, because now it's University of Arkansas Online and the entire Phoenix platform just turns into Arkansas. And it almost reads like in the contractual things, Phoenix would stay Phoenix, owned by Arkansas, which is not the way we were all thinking. And I wonder if there's some contractual legalities here, and the trustees are basically saying, hold the phone. Like, we're not against this. However, if we're going to own this, we're going to own it as the University of Arkansas. And because we also tease that what if this becomes... because we all know Walmart's based in Arkansas, right? What if this becomes the Walmart University, the Walmart Online University of Arkansas? Because where's this money coming from? Who knows? But we all teased that.
Well, it's coming from the system. You brought up the Walmart thing once before, but I'm not seeing a connection there.
No, well, just usually the big money people in the state that happens to be next to it. I'm just... we've seen it before.
I'm not saying that. So to your point about the naming, so the comment here that there would be a licensing deal that will allow the University of Phoenix to use the system name and its branding. Now, I suspect that's going to be the University of Phoenix, a part of the University of Arkansas system. But that does get weird from their brand, because the University of Phoenix is a known brand, and that was one of the concerns that was brought up from the board, was that hey, we are the University of Arkansas. Why are people going to be getting online degrees from the University of Arkansas but have a University of Phoenix on the name? It gets confusing.
Yeah.
See, I'm with Jamie on this. I thought everybody's degrees would be just, Arkansas. Phoenix would go away, and they're buying the tool set to grow their base student population.
And I agree. Honestly, that makes more sense to me because that University of Phoenix branding is not great. It's well known, but it's not great.
Yeah, you just push that off to the side. Now you're just Arkansas, and now you're huge.
Though as I read that sentence, it could be the way the sentence is written is poor. Good job, Ed Scoop. They could mean that it allows the University of Phoenix to completely use the University of Arkansas name as a division of it and get away from the University of Phoenix branding. It is not clear how this is written.
And I'm wondering if all of that, the contractual problems with naming and branding, is what led to this decision, and it's not the overall goal of folding this ginormous online presence into the state university. It's more of when we do this, it is going to be ours, not this weird in-between thing.
I agree. I agree with that take. My only concern is when we talked about this originally, the big selling point was for universities that don't have the online presence to quickly develop one. And if this gets held up too long, you're going to see other players just come in and build up their presence, and then it won't be as enticing at that point.
That's true. Timing's a lot of this deal. Yeah, I don't know. We don't obviously know the details, so we had it in our minds.
Not going to tell you.
Right. Because you're that 10th person that abstained from that vote. Yeah,
I can't vote. I'm going to talk about it on my podcast.
Yeah, I'm not voting. So I don't know. We'll see where this could also backfire on them pretty bad if the deal falls apart and they get a negative connotation out of this too.
Well, I think either way, if Arkansas backs up completely, I don't think they're going to take a hit on this one.
Hopefully not,
because it'll fall by the wayside.
Well, the only way they would is if they had put all their online development efforts into this platform.
It depends how many
chips they haven't been building things on in the background at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that is a question. Would this replace their current online offerings, augment, supplement, or be, it's hard to say how that's going to arrange. And that may be also part of the question too, because I'm sure they have a vice provost of online education as well, who's working on that. And all of a sudden saying, wait, do I get 40,000 more employees, or is there now a competing organization under the same institution? Yeah. Well, we'll have all those answers coming up for you right after this break. No, I'm kidding. We'll keep following the story and see what comes up. It is kind of interesting because University of Phoenix is big. If nothing else, it is well known and big. And to see what happens to that in the future will be interesting to watch. So in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to push a button over here, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk with Mark and Raul about Northwest Met.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So, here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
So for our first segment today, we are joined by Raul Burriel from Oregon State University. Again, I think our first three-time guest.
Yeah, three-time repeat.
3 times. And I'll be honest with you guys, he just shows up. He won't leave. He's been in this same small room for 2 years.
He hasn't left.
I've been waiting in that waiting room for months,
seemingly.
But I guess we're also technically joined by Mark Kolozinski, who's already here. But what we want to talk about is Northwest Met. Raul and I were both at Northwest Met. This is now 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. In
lovely Helena, Montana. And thanks to Dan and his crew for bringing a wonderful conference and beautiful weather for us. It was a bit cold, but sunshine and blue skies, so that was nice of him to arrange that. Raul, what you think? How'd the conference go for you? I mean, I know you were very busy as president, and I guess you're continuing as president of the Northwest Manager of Educational Technology. So, congrats on the coup. But I think it was a great conference. How'd it go for you?
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show again. And the Northwest Managers of Educational Technology, it's an AV, IT, higher ed organization, and we have conferences in different locations in the Northwest-ish every year. And this year we were in Helena, Montana, hosted by Dan Case of Carroll College. So again, thank you, Dan. Thank you to Dan and his team for hosting us there. I think it was a great conference. As president of the organization, I get to accept all the praise and none of the blame. Perfect. So if anybody has any complaints or if anything went wrong, by all means, I will direct you to Dan. But everything that went well, you're welcome. Exactly I thought it was a great conference. We'd been in Helena, I believe, last in 2017. And it is as beautiful as I remember, if maybe a little bit bigger. The town has grown since we were there. It is a beautiful location with an airport right there. So it's
now with an airport.
It's not a particularly challenging commute, which is what makes it such a great location for the Northwest Met Conference. We had great sessions. AV SuperFriends showed up twice, so it was great to see you guys there. One in person, and we'll see. Maybe next year we can get everybody in the same room. We'll just have to wait and see where that goes.
You heard it here first. Raul is personally funding travel for every member of AV SuperFriends.
That's a long walk from Kentucky.
So you had this year's in Montana, and so where's it going next year, Raul?
Well, we have announced that next year we will be coming to Corvallis, Oregon, hosted by Oregon State University. And I hate to break it to you, Mark, but congratulations. You are our conference chair for 2024.
Yay,
Mark. You get a chair? Wait.
Raul, I have a question about that, because you did mention that Mark is going to be chairing this conference, so Mark has a bunch of logistics to put together. Did you voluntold him for that? I mean, how did that happen? Because that was a surprise to me.
As president, and I love to fall back on the bylaws because I wrote them. As president, I cannot also be conference host. So we needed to identify someone else here at Oregon State University, willing-ish to
poor
be responsible.
Soul. Yeah.
But grudgingly
and Don
agreeable?
ran for the hills.
Yeah,
He's like,
not again.
I'm gonna be in Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii.
It was largely Don's fault. I had been trying to find a host organization in Oregon, and shockingly, no one will take my calls. And
the president again.
Don DeMello, Associate Director of Classroom Technology Services at Oregon State University, said, "Why don't you have it here?" And honestly, I still remember 2018.
And then he ran away.
It was a challenge in 2018. We put on a great conference, but the work was challenging. I didn't want to have to do it again, and as president, I get to delegate. And so, congratulations, Mark. You have been delegated.
Quite a role change.
Raul, it sounds like you're kind of being forced to. Is there someone there making you do this? Are they in the room right now? Could we speak safely? The safe word is banana. So
yeah.
No, I think it's great. I'm not biased at all to say OSU has a great team and a lovely campus and lots to do there, so it'll be cool. I've never been to Corvallis.
Right. No, I'm looking forward to it. I've been to a couple of them. And so this one, I'm hoping that we can go bigger and badder than we've ever have with all of them. So check out some different spaces that Oregon State offers and get into it.
Can we change the branding to say AV SuperFriends presents Northwest Met?
If you expect us to be there, it better be changed.
How big of a check are you willing to cut?
I want a drone show.
I can get you a novelty check that is 3 feet by 6
biggest
feet.
check you can get. Yeah, it's just
don't get to a really large.
Just don't cash that until next Friday.
Small numbers.
We did have some great events in 2018, and we are trying to mix it up a little bit, not just do the same old, same old. We are looking at some options, including maybe a road trip in 2024, just to take folks to see some of our different facilities in Oregon, maybe along the coast. And we're just spitballing some things, but I can say that we've already started planning and have a lot of things locked down. So having hosted a conference in the past certainly gives us a roadmap for having to do it again in the future. And so a lot of what I would say was stressful last time is going to be a piece of cake this time.
So have you thought about doing like a dodgeball tournament or anything?
Oh, we have all kinds of ideas. It'd be fun.
Like softball, maybe golf.
All at the same time.
Anything outdoor.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
One of the great things about Northwest Met is what we call Met Money. It is a kind of play monopoly money thing where folks earn rewards, and then at the end of the conference they can cash those in. A lot like a Chuck E. Cheese for AV nerds.
Northwest Met crypto.
And so,
by the way, I found some in my luggage when I got home. So apparently, I'd been squirreling that away.
So yeah,
save it for next year.
If we were to have activities of some kind, there may be some rewards involved, and the prizes generally involve things people actually want. So, in fact, in 2018, things got very contentious as people vied for some of the prizes, and so we do want a repeat of that, and yeah, indeed, perhaps some sporting activities for we're all healthy, fit people, right? Mm-hmm. Get out there, have some fun, earn some Met money, and cash it in for some prizes.
You know what we need to bring back? We need to bring back the rack building challenge that went away from Infocom. Just something to think
the
about.
old school one, yeah, but they just
Let's go pull stuff from Mark's storage room and see what we can assemble.
What's the challenge? How quick you can put in a network switch and click in a bunch of cat cables?
It'll be all retro stuff. It's going to be all IR,
old school. It's all analog.
Analog,
232.
Solder everything.
Yeah. I don't want to travel across the country just to install their racks for them. I mean, that just doesn't seem fair.
Build one retro room for Northwest Met.
See, Larry's already caught on. I was trying to help y'all out with some free labor, but you didn't catch on to it. Larry did.
All labor
Seems like we're
provided
just
by
building
Rexing.
classrooms.
Right. So about it.
What do you foresee like the theme of next year being? Like what do you think?
Oh, definitely AR, VR, virtual worlds.
Okay, try again, Raul.
Bring your goggles.
Yeah, you're wrong. So yeah, find something real.
You fell into that trap.
Theming can certainly be challenging.
Well, it doesn't have to be like an official theme, but I mean, every year you kind of have like everybody starts putting in their presentations. And what do you think next year when people put in their presentations? What are you going to see?
We always seem to walk that crossroads between pedagogy and AV. So that is where we want to be.
Larry, it won't be 21 by 9. Knock it off.
So we have a I mean, I don't have to sell it to you guys, but for your many listeners, Northwest Met is a great conference for AV as well as instructional designers in higher ed. We have folks that come from outside the Northwest region to our conference because they seem to find value in it, and especially at that crossroads between AV and pedagogy. We want to have tracks that are definitely on the integrator AV side of things, but we also want to have tracks related to pedagogy and how to use the technology in education. And we have had that in the past, and we want to see more of that. Folks come to this conference because it's definitely a much smaller, cozier conference than, say, going to something like NAB or Infocom, where everyone's a stranger. What we're hearing now is from folks in institutions that had, got dragged to Northwest Met and didn't really know what to expect, who are now going back to their institutions and telling everybody, you got to go to this conference. We're hearing from folks in Arizona and Utah and Colorado that largely haven't come to our conference in the past, saying that not only do they want to come again, but they want to host. I've got where last year I was having trouble finding anyone in Oregon who wanted to host a conference in 2024. I've probably got conferences lined up for the next 3 or 4 years now. People knocking on my door, they really see a value in this, where we're talking not only AV and like, here's the newest cameras, here's the newest microphones, here's the newest projectors, but also how do you use them in an educational environment? How do you tailor a class, and how do you leverage them in learning in a classroom? So that is definitely the path we want to walk. So we really want to be there at that crossroads between AV and pedagogy.
Yeah, I'd say from attending in the past, it's definitely way more accessible to folks to have some substantial conversations about technology where you don't have all of the big time distractions of the large trade shows. So I think that's one of the beauties of this show and this conference itself, is that similar content, but a much more accessible venue.
And what you come away with it is not only what you see in the sessions, but also, of course, you guys know this as well as I do, those contacts that you make in the hallways in between the sessions. And these are folks that then you reach out to afterwards and can follow up with, and not only the integrators and the vendors, who of course are a big part of this. Northwest Met can't happen without them. So a shout out to Aver and Panasonic and Sony and Crestron and Extron. These guys certainly help us make this conference possible, but also the other institutions that we connect with. We all know, of course, Frank at UNLV. He's always there to tell us how to do things right. But I've got a call coming up on Friday with one of his team to help them on something they're looking to deploy, because we talked about it at Northwest Met and they followed up and they asked if we can have a call. That is the kind of connections you make at a conference like Northwest Met that you can't oftentimes do at conferences like Infocom or NAB.
Nice. All right. If anybody's out there listening to it and wants to get more information, where should they go, Raul?
NWMET.org. NWMET.org.
Right. Or we can just ask Mark.
You can ask me.
Or email Mark directly at mark@askmeallyourquestions.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to having it here in Corvallis next year, and thanks for letting me know that I'm a glutton for punishment, and we'll be doing a bunch of coordination, and you're doing the perfect consultant gig, Raul. You just you should do this, you should do that, so it's perfect. So I didn't say a word,
exactly
just
what
said
to do.
Try it, yeah. So cool.
Hey, those presidential coups pay off.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Raul. Thanks for coming on.
Hey y'all, I've got this new show I got to tell you about. It's called AVSF Live. That's LIVE exclamation point. First off, all you need to do is go to avsf.live.live, not .com, not .net, but .live. Yes, it's a website, does work. We're going to try out this new live video thing. It's probably going to go over like a hair in a biscuit. You got to check it out. Come to the tweeters and look us up on LinkedIn to find out more information. We'll see y'all soon.
So for our final segment today, we've been talking around this for a while, and it's something that, well, Jamie, you and I did this at UMKC 10 years ago, whenever that was. But this idea of a digital canvas, this idea of a single large unbroken display in which you can manipulate different content streams. I guess that's a fair way to phrase it. Mm-hmm. Not talking about a video wall, not talking about a just edge blended displays, but treating it as a single display field. And this has come up recently. We've been talking about this because there's a big push from manufacturers and one particular large non-AV software company called Microsoft to put ultra-wide displays into meeting spaces and potentially into classrooms, but with no actual, or not much thought given to how that content is displayed. And simply taking your existing 4.3 PowerPoints and stretching them out to 21:9 is not a good solution. And you know it's going to happen. I don't care what you're saying. Those of you yelling at your car stereos right now, it'll happen on day one. But the idea of a digital canvas to say, okay, I'm going to put up a bigger display but I'm going to treat it as multiple content fields, which allow us to not only ensure that things are at the right size and thus viewable and meeting all the standards, but also allow us to get some secondary information on that screen or on that display. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, is this going to be a thing? Are we going to see this in some showcase spaces? Is this just another kind of flash in the pan that comes up every now and then, but it never really makes much of an inroad? Or is this the potential solution for these manufacturers pushing wider and wider displays without thought given to the content?
Yeah, I think we already see this in special use spaces anyway, right? I think it is the logical answer to the, well, shit, we bought this, now what? We bought this 21:9 display, we got out of our team's contract, and now what? And I think this is
that's a good point.
This is kind of that evolution into that and going, well, how do we use this thing now that we have it? Or, this room is only a team's room 60% of the time. Can we use it the other 40? Well, let's get creative here. How can we mash this up and make this work? So I do think it is the natural progression, and it is a good use case for some of these displays. It's also a good use case for if you by chance have two 16:9 side by side that may not be edge blended, but you want to use it from one machine. Maybe you want to put multiple different machines up there or multiple different content streams. You can. The price of graphics processors is coming down. It's not like the good old days when even to get the most simple window processor was costing you 10, 12, 20, 30 grand. You can now get a pretty good one for under $5. Some of them you can drive right out of the same machine that you're doing everything else from. So I like this idea. I think it has some challenges to get through in the evolution of people's way of thinking, but it is a good use for all these screens that are coming out.
I think one little concern that I have is just like for an active learning space to be effective, you have to work with the registrar to get the right instructors there. For an instructor to really take advantage of the digital canvas, they're going to be presenting information in a different manner. So the instructional design of that course will change. In that scenario, they have to be in that room or a room like it for every time they teach that class, or they have to have multiple versions of that course to present the same material in a different way. So that would be my only concern is now we go from our standard to we have a upgraded space, and we just have to make sure we get the right instructors in that space.
So I don't think what I'm going to say disagrees with what Larry and Jamie said, but I'm going to back it up a little bit and kind of unpack this at a kindergarten level. So the 2 times that I've been asked on our campus, like, can I show multiple things on this screen? That's what I want. I want to show multiple things on X screen, right? Whether that's 21:9 or 4:3 or 16:10. The goal is to just get multiple things. So as I work with the faculty, I showed them that you could resize your browser over here, and then you could bring up another browser and bring up a second piece of content and put it here. Oh, and by the way, you could put it there too. And while you're doing all this manipulation, you need to make sure your text height and the content in these windows is readable by all students, and this is how you would do it. They were amazed and flabbergasted that we could show multiple windows on a screen. So we were just joking. I have multiple windows on my screen. I have 3 screens here. So I'm the only person looking at my screens. I've sized my content correctly. I have no windowing processing. I have no special hardware. I've got a computer and 3 monitors. So really, when we start talking about doing canvassing and windowing and sharing content, I challenge designers out there to think about what the true problem is, because the tool set could be in front of you right then and there. Just depends on what the instructors are doing.
The nice thing about the window processing, though, is it
locks it in.
It helps to get the content the right size, because
I get it.
We all know if the instructors are still showing 4:3 PowerPoints, they're not going to always think about content and element height.
But the argument to that, though, Larry, I don't disagree with you, but the argument to that is we can't control the content being developed anyway. We can help educate instructors how to develop their content if they listen to us or not, that's up to them.
Step
so
one,
you're
listen to
still
my
like, yeah,
podcast.
you could put your window there, window 1 out of 5 on that screen, and it's forced. And so are we saying like only this thing can go in that window and you have to operate it like this? And Larry's shaking his head yes, and that's
presets with very limited amount of shrinkage.
and exactly. So really,
I think that raises a good question, and Justin, you're dead on.
I don't know.
And the way Larry is describing it is the way that makes the most sense. We as engineers and designers will lay out the content fields on the screens, canvas, whatever you call it, so it is appropriately sized, and then identify what sort of content makes the most sense in there. If I have a little screen off to this, or a little content field off to the side, which is less than a quarter the height or whatever, that's not where I'm going to allow someone to route the
Excel file.
Their laptop to it to show Excel, because it's not going to look good. I mean, you won't be able to see that. And the same thing, like if you have the dock cam, does the dock cam go to the giant central content field all the time? No. I mean, you have to map it out, but you're not wrong. And this is one of my questions as I work through these. If you do this in software and do it the same way to identify, so say you let's do it the logical, easy way. You put a monitor at the lectern that matches the aspect ratio of your display. Within that, you leveraging Windows, Mac, whatever you want to do, or that one guy out there who's doing Linux. You identify presets in the software, and there's any number of pieces of software that will do this, that create like little windowed areas that things can snap to. But you're right. Someone's going to put Excel in the top left corner where it's way too small to see. That's their call. We would say, no, you want to put that in the big, number 1 field here in the center so everyone can see it. But we'll have to work with them, with the instructors, that is, so they understand how that works. But there is a question, like, can I just do this with the computer I have in front of me? And I'm about 90% sure that the answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. And that's the other concern is, like, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the part of we're going to lock this window in for this one piece of content. This one piece of content is Excel. Excel files could be any text height. Well, let's do a document camera. Well, what's it showing? It's showing text that somebody wrote.
It's showing
that could
Excel
be any size. So when you're locking that window in, these people could just make the content as small or as big as they want anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's, and then if you lock them in, then you're going to get that one faculty member. Well, my doc cam is in the top left, and it needs to be in the bottom right of this checkerboard. Well, that's not the way this works. Well, I can't teach in here. Well, why do you need it in the bottom right? That's just the way it looks better. So you're always going to have that one person that's going to be difficult to deal with.
But everything you described goes back to the comment of the maturity of the people using the space.
Yes.
One of the I agree with you. I live in a windowed environment. I window everything. I have these cascading things, everything, right? But how many people do you know or you come across where it's full screen all the time? Anything they're using is always full screen.
Yeah.
It's all the first thing they do is hit the big box in the corner to make it full screen. And we have to, so how do you maybe break them out of that? And I'm also thinking, and yes, when it is the displays all match, great. But when we get into these situations where you have these edge blended projectors and this weird, I'm just throwing out 27:9, 22:10. Stay with me.
I'm holding out for that one. 22:10, the new standard.
But when we do DV LED, when we do these merged projection systems that are just a little wonky ass, great. Blowing up everything full screen all the time on that is a waste of space. So how can we make that dynamic? How can we give them those opportunities? Can you do it from a single computer? Sure. But what if you wanted iMag? What if you... So these are the things where I'm not saying it's the best idea ever. I'm saying it is a use for these different spaces, these different size displays, because if I bring my laptop in and connect it to the 21:9 monitor, it's going to be stupid because my laptop's not 21:9.
And going back to what you were saying, Jamie, is you blow up the web page and you maximize it. And those web pages that are built with like news columns with all the content in the middle, and then you have 60% of your pixels, 30% on the left and 30% on the right not even being used because they don't know how to zoom in.
Yeah,
Like,
but let's pretend that there's some
Justin,
maturity
that
here.
space is for ads on the left and right.
It's
I'm
the
just
maturity.
saying.
It's the people that to Larry's point, there is a use case. They are ready to accept this new way of doing things. And maybe they do have the second screen, the notorious second screen that they want to show. Okay, what can we do? How can we make this actually work?
and that's a good point, Jamie. Like if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to drive a Corvette, I'll teach you how to drive a Corvette. If you want to drive a Pinto, I'll teach you how to drive a Pinto. But if the wrong tools are in front of the instructor, they're going to use it wrong. It's going to be a bad experience. That's why I go back to saying the 2 times that I've been asked to do windowing, I talked with the instructor, coached them up. They did everything through the computer, and it worked out pretty well.
And I think we're really not that far off, because when I put the video wall processor in front of it and did the preset things, it wasn't so I could have like multiple windows all over the place. It was so I could take what type of content it was and put it where the majority of the class can see it well. And if they wanted to break up the screen however they wanted to break it, at that point, I just put the PC up there natively full width, and they can do whatever windowing they want. But if they're showing, this was a, computer animation classroom at one of the previous universities I worked at, when they were showing a DVD, I wanted that to be centered on the screen so your viewing angles were okay, and it took up the appropriate size, and it worked. And it was just whenever they hit that button, the preset automatically kicked in, and it looked correct.
And that's a great point, Larry. Like, we don't hit DVD buttons anymore. You hit the PC button, let it ride, right? And so that we're
I have a
dealing
DVD
with
button, it just doesn't
different,
do anything.
right? We're dealing with, the content's coming from computers now, and that's it. And computers can window. Let's teach people how to do that.
In the computer.
The content's in the computer. Window the computer and then window the screen. It's great. Yeah.
So, Jamie, I had mentioned early on that we did this at UMKC in 2012, 13, whatever it is, in the auditorium there at Block. That the idea there was and correct me, I want to say that is a 3-to-1 screen. It is.
Technically, it's 3-to-1. We use it as 4, but technically it's 3-to-1.
But there are 4 projectors driving a 3-to-1 screen with the idea that we could show one thing in the middle, we could show 3 things. So what we found what worked most often was 2 side-by-side full-size images, and those same 2 in the wings shown as kind of like little ones off to the side for things. Just because then the issue we had was that way it ensured that the content was the correct aspect ratio and things were getting stretched and squashed and all that. But what's your thought 10 years on that's still in operation, or the variations of it? Is that something that people use in a unique way, or are they just resigned to that basically being an AV screen?
Well, it has been resigned to the AV screen, mostly because the maturity of the folks wasn't there, and we were trying to solve issues of sight lines and content and resolution things, and I think that's the point where we're over focusing on just use the computer and the content and read. We're trying to also solve different problems here too. So using that video processor, we are now able to do either 2 giant things or stick them all one big video in the middle. And because when you go full screen on Netflix and things, and it's ultra wide, it doesn't necessarily center it. It does some weird shit to it, right? And that's what we're trying to battle and fight. I think that I am interested in, we're going to be redoing that soon, but I am interested in being able to make that a little bit more dynamic. And it'd probably be preset based, but we can. And it does solve some sightline issues. Where I'm most interested in it is I have a couple of places where they are distance ed based, and I've told you my pharmacy program has 3 distinct campuses, and they all got to talk all the time. Well, now if it's only 2 of the locations in the class, I can set up this video wall to be different because I'm taking video feeds from different systems, and I'm able to put them up there and tile them. Then when it is all 3 locations, I can tile it differently. when they're having a roundtable discussion, I can put the cameras in and tile it differently. It's that flexibility that now I can make this image do what is appropriate for the presentation that's being given. This isn't the lock, stock, and barrel of the everyday chemistry class. I mean, these are people who are ready and mature to be able to go this way.
So I was going to say spoiler or something, but this is something I'm doing this summer, and I did it for two reasons. I am upgrading one of our largest lecture halls on campus. It currently has 3 screens, but not in the way you think. There are 2 screens side by side that can show 2 images. You know, as you see in many larger spaces, here's 2 side by side screens. Do what you want. There is a 3rd screen that comes down in front of those 2, but centered. In addition, this room has 3 projectors because you need projectors for each screen, I guess, like you do. So I'm fixing that because that's ridiculous. I'm fixing it in 2 ways. One, I'm getting rid of all the screens. The screens are gone.
So no video, just audio.
Just audio. It's all audio. It's all descriptive.
Yep.
Above the writable surface. Also, by the way, my pet peeve, and Larry, I know you love this one too, when the screens come down and still block part of the writable surface at the front of the room. Awesome. In an auditorium, there's enough height above that usually, and there is in this case, to adjust the screen stops so they don't do that. But
or a fixed screen.
Why are we putting writable surfaces in an auditorium?
I am not going to argue
the camera.
I'm not going to argue the writable surfaces thing because I support writable surfaces.
I do, just in the right size room, though.
Yeah, well, I'm putting in a marker board camera.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
To feed into the processor.
No, it's going to feed into feed
time.
into a dedicated monitor that you put under the dock cam, and you zoom in with the dock cam to show.
And then you lock it into a window up on your wall.
But so I'm going to use a fixed screen above the chalk. In this room, it's a chalkboard. They want a chalkboard. That's fine. I don't care. Chalkboard that goes the entire width of the room. I'm going to put a fixed screen above that because when I did the math, I can get a 32 by 9 unbroken field, the largest one that Draper will sell me, without needing seams in it, because you can go bigger, but it gets really weird at that point. The largest one they make, 32 by 9 across the front of the room. I'm going to put in 2 projectors. I will edge butt those projectors, and yes, I know I'll have to go in periodically and dial those back in. I'll deal with it. That solves the projection and screen issues, but because of that, now I can ensure that the images are properly sized and everybody can see them, but that gives me that flexibility to say, oh, in easy mode, yeah, you just get, screen 1, screen 2, and you have 2 monitors at the lectern, everybody's happy. But I can give you that advanced mode, and we can work with people to identify what content goes where. We can, to Justin's point, we can do it all on the computer. I can show 2 screens side by side. I can go in the computer and I can dial in the window layouts the way I want, so it makes sense for my content. Because yes, I can pipe the dock cam in on one application to show the dock cam on the computer screen, and thus, the dock cam is now on the projection screen. So there are these things that allow a lot of flexibility there, but that 3rd projection screen in the past was used, for lack of a better term, for movie mode. So which was an odd way to do it, to have a 3rd screen that would come down in front of the other 2, so you couldn't use them all at the same time, and a 3rd projector, but that way they had their centered projection surface for movies. Now, we did find a lot of professors actually used that because they just wanted to show one thing, and to them, Justin, you mentioned it before, kind of like, I want the simple mode, I want easy mode I want to show one thing up there, and there it is. So I can do that now in the processor to say, oh, push the easy mode button or whatever, and you get one image centered dead center, and so that looks fine. Jamie, to your point about, but when they are watching movies, what if those movies are in a wider aspect ratio? What if they're in 233, 235, 240 to 1, which, by the way, if you do the math on that, is 21 by 9. I can do that. They can set that up, and we can set up the appropriate zoom and scale and do that. So if someone's watching they want to show a movie in there at a wider aspect ratio, we can use more of the screen surface. So it's basically just giving us flexibility for that advanced mode. I'm guessing you're probably right. Based on how the registrar schedules people, most of the time it will be used in simple mode to just show 2 images side by side, just like they used to previously. But we do have that flexibility and that capability for doing that advanced layout, and we will work with our Center for Teaching and Learning, et cetera, to talk about how that might get used best. But I'm fixing this. This is my executive decision. I'm fixing this because the way the system was engineered in the past annoys me. The way that is wired and built annoys me. So I'm streamlining that dramatically so that it's more reliable and simpler to operate from somebody going in to teach their class. So, and I'm doing that this summer. I mean, I've already ordered parts. It's happening, so I will certainly report back.
And I'm working to get around some of the presentation softwares like PowerPoint, Keynote, whatever. When you hit the presentation mode, even if it's in presenter mode, your presentation's full screen on one screen.
Yeah, it just goes full
Done.
screen. Yeah.
End of statement. Finished. The only one that doesn't is the Google one, but you got to be a little crazy with that one. It can window out, but it goes full screen. So how can you have a multiple screen thing? Because then you're sharing your notes and things. Great. Well, now we can move this around. Now we can double it up. Now we can shrink it and have something else. I'm using it to solve weird problems. I don't think this is the best thing, so don't take that wrong. But I thought it was worth conversing about because we keep talking about all these ultra-wide screens, And I actually last week, I was on a site visit and I had a reverse problem. The presentation monitor that was on the desk, the direct monitor, was one of those ultra-wide 32 somethings. The only other screen at the presentation, the display for the audience display, was a standard 86-inch 16:9.
Who did that?
Oh man, that hurts.
I won't tell you.
That's what happens when Jamie shops at Walmart.
I won't tell you that it might be the flagship of the state that I currently live in.
Awesome.
But it was the exact opposite. They have all these issues because when they bring up the computer, it fills the monitor in front of them. And then when they go to put it on the presentation display, it goes bonkers and everybody hates it.
In their defense, that room was on the 3rd floor and they couldn't get an ultra-wide display of that height in an elevator.
Yeah,
but they could get a regular 16:9 display in there and just do it the right way. It sounds like somebody. I had someone here in the PC group say the same thing.
You can't defend that, Larry. You can't defend that.
So Jamie, I know how this happened. I had somebody in the PC group here say the same thing. They said, "Oh, we should put in bigger monitors at the lecterns," and I pointed out, no, because if you go bigger and wider, that looks cool for the one person standing there. That doesn't look cool for the 300 people looking at the display up there because something either gets stretched or squashed, you pick. So
yeah,
I would have said, go ahead and put bigger monitors there as long as it's 16:9.
Or
the 17-inch, 19-inch, 22-inch.
When I asked them about it, they said, well, that was what we had and we just never changed it again. So it's just
so they're lazy.
It was just what was available at that very second and they never changed it. That's fine. Whatever. The example here is that this is the weird crap we're getting into with all of these changes in the aspect ratios and how computers deal with them and how we distribute them. So maybe a processor is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, so what happens if, and I've been thinking through this in my head for the past 5 or 10 minutes. So I've been kind of going in and out of this conversation anyway, as usual. What if we've seen the smoke? Yeah. What if Windows put in a windowing preset that was easy to use for faculty and just embedded it in their one of their updates one day?
It is built in. It's been built in for years.
And it's horrible.
No, it's fine. I'm using it right now.
I said easy to use.
How do you think I manage my screen here? So I manipulate
I just
stuff.
drag and drag.
I manipulate stuff using the Windows commands built in. Anyone not using it on your keyboard right now, go push a Windows key and use your arrow keys and all your stuff gets moved all over the place. So
yeah, that's different though. I don't know.
No, that's exactly what you're talking about. Unless you mean like a software running in the underground in the background.
Yes. Underground software that will ride on the computer.
That
invisible.
That launches at start and then automatically applies. I know this field is only for PowerPoint. This field's only and that software's out there. That's existed for years. So
but that it's out there, but when then Windows brings it in and then they change something, it's going to be a whole different level of...
and that's one of the challenges we've talked about. Computers are, for most of us, I think, Larry, you may be the only one on the call today, but for computers are the one device we don't control. Larry, your team manages those, so you have some say in that, but someone will still roll updates and not... Larry's coerced into dealing with computers, but I don't control the computers in my classrooms. Those are built and maintained by somebody else.
We do.
Oh, you do? All right. So maybe it's
we do.
Just me and Jamie.
Well, and I control the computers, but I don't control the image. So really, what good does it do?
We control the image, but we don't control the Windows updates and what gets pushed down in that update. So.
I think, though,
we control the horizontal.
If folks were thinking about doing this digital canvas thing, would you recommend a processor? Or would you?
So I
don't know.
So here's my take on this, because I have funding for it and I'm paying for it. I am putting in a processor now. I'm putting in a Coreo Micro with appropriate cards, because it's got little card slots. It's a cool little box. I'm doing that with the full intention of leveraging that. But to your question, if I find that actually the computer's just as flexible and we can do that and it's simpler, and the next time I roll this out, because the space I'm doing this in is a big lecture hall, there's an identical one right next door, exact same size. So I'll probably do that one next year. That one may or may not get a processor. If the processor solves a bunch of issues and like, hey, this actually works well, we can ensure we're not running into weird EDID mismatches or anything like that, then yeah, I'll buy another one. But if it turns out, honestly, I don't need one, I think, to Justin's point, honestly, the computer in front of us is probably capable of doing this in most scenarios. And because it's a device that is familiar to people using it, hey, drag this window around, they know what that means. The challenge, of course, is now you're giving them all the control to put things way too small or something like that.
In most of these rooms are high-profile rooms, and so I am going to put a processor in there. That way, if the dean brings in their Surface, which is another stupid aspect ratio, then it'll work well, and we can make that fit a preset.
Yeah, and Chris, I agree. I've tried several, and that Coreo Micro, the power it gives you for the price that it is, I was really happy with it.
Especially the Coreo software is awesome for setting up. So you lay out whatever crazy crap you want, and you get to manipulate content fields immediately distinct from the actual displays. It's fantastic.
But I do, when I get into these weird situations, because I also try to think about if it's not just the computer that's in the rack, right? Because I'm that guy, I always bring my laptop. I want to use mine. And, if there's only a single monitor but there's two monitors on the podium, and there's only a single big ass 27 by 2012 screen up on the wall. What's the math on that one? 27 by 2012.
The math is 72.
But
you guys are just saying numbers now.
Yeah, I am. If it's just this massive LED, direct view LED that takes up maybe an entire circle, how can I use that with something that's not the PC that's in the room? And I'm gonna try it out, and I will eventually probably own one of these wider aspect screens, and I'm going to try it out with the processor and see how it all rolls. And it may be overkill, but right now, I think it's the best use for those things. It is not Teams rooms. That's not.
Well, I like who mentioned it? Somebody said, what do I do? Justin, I think it was you. But anyone can claim credit for this. What do I do with all this stuff I bought for my Teams room when I inevitably decommission it?
Oh, that was Larry or Jamie.
Oh, all right, well, then I'll take credit for it. A few minutes ago when Jamie. I said, but yes, if I build out a custom aspect and custom size display for one specific use case, in this case, Microsoft Teams rooms, invariably down the road, as with any system that gets decommissioned and you change to something else, what do I do with this? Does a processor or appropriate software on the computer allow us to treat this as a digital canvas and thus recover that display, recover that cost? Because, and Jamie, you mentioned a few minutes ago, LEDs. LEDs are their own thing because you build those out of individual panels, which is technically a video wall, I get it. But you can be almost any aspect ratio. As we start putting in LED displays, and right now they're still very much a showcase sort of thing, but we're sneaking them in here and there. 10 years from now, we're going to have a bunch of LED displays that are no longer used or no longer being used the way they were initially installed, but yet LEDs, barring some sort of board failure, have a very long lifespan. So they're still going to be there, and you're going to get that question of what do we do with this now that we're no longer using it as a da-da-da room. So this sort of thing may solve some of that to say, hey, a basic window processor or the appropriate preset software on the PC allows us to repurpose this display, do it intentionally, do it appropriately, so that whatever content goes up there is sized and viewable to everybody in the space.
or you just throw it out and replace it.
You throw it out and replace it.
By doing this, I'm also really leaning on in some of these lecture halls and things of, with a processor, introducing the iMac system with the local cameras, to taking the instructor's nonverbal cues from being the little bitty thumbprint of a person in the front of the room and giving them their own window on the screen. They can choose magnify me. Similar to houses of worships and things. Are you considering that when you do this? Having a camera feed for it?
Honestly, I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it. The system I'm putting in right now allows for four inputs and two outputs, 2 displays, but 4 sources simultaneously. But you're right. I could use one of those to say, okay, dedicated camera feed to this one. So they would have have to figure out how we do a preset to allow that to show, okay, put me down here in the corner so they can always see me. I don't foresee that being a huge draw or something of a huge amount of interest, but maybe that could be show monitor 2 for the Zoom Brady Bunch mode off to the side here, just so I can see, yes, there are people up there. They're all way too small to actually discern who they are, but I can see that there are 12 people online right now. So
you can just pop open your NDI software and bring your camera in.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to put NDI.
Super
yeah,
easy.
I'll jump right in.
That's real easy. Just do that.
That's assuming that you can run that on the local machine, which nobody can.
To bring up the House of Worship thing, like I have seen that type of scenario where they're using a whiteboard or a monitor and they're pointing at things. So as you already capture the whiteboard natively through your whiteboard camera, having that camera on them so the students in the back of the room can see exactly what they're pointing at on the screen as well might be nice.
These are things like as I think about how I want to deploy these. That's a feature in some of these 500 seat rooms that I wish they had more of. And this is where I think I'm going to start using a lot of this.
Yeah, that's useful. I can see that.
Well, and that's the advantage of having a window processor is just because I set up the presets on day 1 to be a certain thing doesn't mean I can't go back and, at the end of the semester or halfway through or on day 2 and change those. Because we find that, you know what? Somebody's actually using the room this way. And we find out that they keep setting things up this way. Let's reconfigure that to make that easier. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And that's what I do like about the concept, or not concept, but you do like about the application of using a dedicated hardware processor in there is that I think it gives you more flexibility for all of your sources to be routed through there.
And flexibility introduces complications.
No, never.
So we have to always ride that line.
Well, and you raise a good point. How much control do you give to people teaching in the space? It's just like with a matrix switcher. Never, ever, ever, ever give somebody the ability to go in and route any display or any source to any display. And I find that all the time people do that. And there's always like that advanced page that has like 1,000 buttons. Don't ever do that. Work with people, work with the teaching and learning center, work with your instructors to determine what makes the most sense, give them presets. If you want to set up a technician page or a web interface where people can log into to do troubleshooting or testing or advanced event layouts or something, that's different. But don't clutter up touch panels with those buttons. It's just, it's insane.
I've done that once, and it's an emergency operations center.
Different.
Not a classroom.
Where people they're in there all day long. Yes. Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah. So
I'm talking about, those general classrooms, because for every instructor who is advanced enough and wants to go in and manipulate the layout of the room to do exactly, you'll have 25 others who just want to go in and just teach their class, and they're stuck in some sort of weird, like, why is this showing up there's a box over here and I can't get the display, and so it's a mess.
I would be interested if anybody out there is using this idea of digital canvas and using the processors, and whether you're using presets or do you just give them the software that allows them to literally do whatever they want, which way they want. I'd be interested. Let us know, because we've all fiddled with it, but is it really in the wild in our higher ed environments? Let us know.
If I ever give somebody the back end software, it's here's this, don't call me. Because usually that person's super advanced, and that's probably happened 2 or 3 times in my entire career where I've given a client a back end software to their AV system, It doesn't happen in
Clients, the back end.
classrooms. Yeah. I don't like it.
Well,
but
that's
I've done
why
it
I
once or
want
twice.
to. I want to hear from everybody else, because somebody out there is giving this a go as we speak, and I want to know what they're running into.
Yeah, or what mistakes are we about to make? So save me a whole bunch of headaches here. So, all right. Any last thoughts on digital canvassing and how we would be leveraging these, or any thoughts in general? No. All right.
Drag your Chrome windows around and experiment. It's easy.
Drag your Chrome window. What?
How many windows do you have open of Chrome?
Yeah, what's going on in your Chrome?
1, 2, 3, 4.
In your
You know,
computer
these
still
are
runs?
tabs, right?
I can't see multiple tabs at the same time. I got to see this and that at the same time as this, which is why we're having this conversation, y'all.
I'm not sure what's
Windowing.
happening on your screen.
There's lots of shit happening on my screen,
Which explains,
including you all.
which explains your network issues.
I don't know, maybe. I've got great network.
Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients. Psst, hey, come here a minute. You want to hang out with the AV SuperFriends more often? Like every day? At odd hours? Well, we're not going to do that. That's weird. Why would you want to do that? However, we are hosting our own Discord server, and we're inviting you to join. And to keep things exclusive to AVSF supporters and listeners, we're going to make you jump through a single hoop to get there. Here's how. You have to request an invite. That's it. Okay, how do you do that? Well, you can submit a message via the contact form on our website, avsuperfriends.com. Or you can email us, mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. Or you can DM us on Twitter, @avsuperfriends. Or you can send us a message on LinkedIn. Yes, it's AV SuperFriends. Or you can shout really, really loud. That might not work. But keep trying anyway. You're going to get locked up if you do that. Or you can drive past AVSF World Headquarters in lovely, scenic Centralia, Pennsylvania, and throw a rock through our window. Just write your name on it. Also keep shouting. Or send a self-addressed stamped envelope to AVSF Discord, P.O. Box 169, Egmouth, Minnesota Nuts, 0042. I'm not sure about that last one. It sounds fake. So there you go. We want you to join our Discord server. It's our little corner of the internet to share ideas, ask questions, brainstorm, complain about industry trends, or name and shame people, products, and organizations. And as an added bonus, if you act today, you'll receive one of Justin's dogs. He's got like 7 of them. Also, you'll get access to live broadcasts of our audio-only recording sessions. Seriously, you'll get to listen to us before the show is published as a polished and edited MP3. So what are you waiting for? Join us now. HR stuff. Mark, do you want to just link the HR call into this? It'd be more interesting.
It'd be nice. We'll go through some candidates.
You're live on a pre-recorded podcast.
Bringing you in. Okay.